Hey y'all, so I went in my group and I posted that anyone could ask me questions and I would go live and answer them. One of the questions that came up today was how to budget with such a big family, because I have 5 kids and most people, even with 2 or 3, are having a hard time with this. And it was budgeting from groceries to presents and everything, but we're going to just go over how I do groceries today because it's such a big topic. So if you want to hop on here and let me know that you're listening, and if you have any questions, you guys can comment as I'm talking, and I'll try to respond to your comments as we're doing the live or after the fact. We will go ahead and get started. So, as you guys know, I have 5 kids. I work from home. My husband's at school most of the time. He's in his senior year. And our kids are extremely active and eat a ton. So, with that being said, we can't really minimize the amount of food that they take in because we want them to grow and they're so active. They need to make sure that they're eating enough. So we have to take that into account when we're shopping because they're like bottomless pits. But it is also, no matter what, as much as I've tried to cut back on where we spend the money and what kinds of food we're buying and whatnot, every month it's over our mortgage. I will be honest with you about that. It's not something that I've been able to bring down and make it lower than that. So our food is our most expensive bill, but that's to be expected with 5 growing children. It's a large family. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys kind of the process of how I do my shopping, because I think that is kind of where you got to start to be able to budget properly and cut back on, wasteful and being wasteful or those grab and go things that end up adding up and costing you more money. So the first thing that I do actually technically has nothing to do with our groceries. It has everything to do with our schedule. So, for instance, we go grocery shopping on Sundays, so I begin my week on Monday technically. And so on Sunday I sit down and, like, first thing in the morning or on Saturday night, I'll sit down and do it. And I will go over my next week's schedule. So, like this week, we had company Monday. Tuesday, we didn't have anything going on. Wednesday, Jose was home from school, so because he doesn't have school on Wednesdays. And then Thursdays are usually game days, so I added that in when I'm trying to show you guys what's kind of going on, because usually our kids have something going on Thursday afternoons. Fridays, usually nothing unless we decide to go to the home football games. Saturday, my husband's usually home, but sometimes he has photo shoots, so that's kind of hit or miss. This weekend he won't be home to help out. And then Sunday we do church and grocery shopping. So having that all in mind before I even decide on what I'm going to make for the week or what we need from the grocery store is huge, because if what I decide to make, say, I want to make something that's going to take 2 hours from prep to cooking, but my son has a game on Thursday. Thursday's not the day to do that, because guaranteed I'm going to fail at that. Thursday's going to come around and I'm not going to want to make that. So either one of the two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to end up picking up food, which is going to cost us an arm and a leg, because 3 out of 5 kids eat adult meals now, whether it's fast food or going out to eat, so literally costs a fortune. Or, I end up messing up our meal plan to where I'm making something that wasn't originally on, the schedule, so I have to pick up some last minute things to make a quicker meal. Rather than already knowing that before I make my grocery list and my meal plan, If I already know that I'm going to be busy on Thursday night, then I need to plan for something either in the crock pot or something that's really quick or I can make ahead of time. And that's what I do. So with that being said, so Monday we had company. So we split pizza with our company. So that was something extra. We don't normally eat a lot of fast food or going out to eat or pizza or anything like that. But because we're having company, that was just an easier option. So we did that. So if we don't have anything to do on a day like Tuesday and Friday, then I can make more elaborate meals or something that's going to take a little bit more time to cook in like the oven or on the stove. So those are, my fideo, my spaghetti, tacos, things like that that I want to make from start to finish and might take more than about 20 minutes. So those meals I make on days I don't have anything in the evenings. On days that my husband's home, I take full advantage of that, and he knows it. So we meal plan around the fact that he'll be home and able to light the grill, because we love grilled food. So on days that he is home from school, we usually have grilled backstrap or steaks or hamburgers and hot dogs or anything he can throw on the grill. So he does something that he can help me with. That way I'm able to go and get some work done because he's taking over dinner. And I am extremely blessed to have that option. I haven't always had that option, but I am excited to have that now. And he is such a good sport in not complaining about it. So then on other days where I know that I'm going to be a little busy, but I still want to have food at home, that's when I go ahead and use my crock pot. Crock pot is huge around here. I use it probably about 2 or 3 times a week, which during sports seasons, which is now like every season. So with that many kids and a lot of boys, sports season is every day, every month, all year long. And so the crock pot gets a lot of use. And those meals are not only usually really inexpensive, but I am able to throw everything in the morning and not worry about it until we get home from whatever we had to do, the game or practice, or, my husband had a photo shoot and I had things to run errands after school or whatnot. So we come home, maybe I got to do like 1 or 2 more things, and within 20 minutes of being home, we're able to eat and start relaxing for the evening or doing our schedule for the next day. Now that you know kind of my process of how I do that, how I choose my meals is very specific. I go through, before we even think about what meals we want to have for the following week, it's a family affair. We include our kids in planning and grocery shopping and all of that. One, to teach them, because it's important that they learn not only how to, go through the pantries and the fridge and the freezer, but also, how to budget, what it's going to cost and what they can make and how long and how to cook it. So they are very involved in all of that to teach them how to be, self-sufficient adults when they get to that point, because I love my children, but I do not want them coming here at the age of 30 needing me to cook their food because they don't know how. So the first thing we do is we go through the house and we write down literally anything we're out of that we use on a regular basis. So like that's the eggs, the milk, the cereal, peanut butter, anything like that. Bread, the tortillas, like we go through a lot of those things regularly. So that's the first thing we worry about, is the things that I don't necessarily use for meals, but they use for breakfast and lunch, because I do not make breakfast and lunch. That's on them. And so come dinner time, whatever I make for dinner, that's what's made for dinner. So I worry about dinners and making sure that they have what they need for the breakfast and lunch that they want to eat. We go through a lot of eggs, and then we go through a lot of peanut butter and bread and lunch meat and cheese. Those are like our staple products. Like if we don't have those, the world's gonna end. So we go through that first, and then we see what meat is in the freezer, which my husband hunts, so having deer in the freezer is a huge cut in the budget. We don't have as much to spend money on when we're able to eat deer a couple times a week. And then we also look at the butcher shop and see what meat packages that they have, because usually it's a lot cheaper to buy your meat in bulk from a butcher than it is to get it piece by piece from the store. So if you already have meat in your freezer, you want to check what meats you have in your freezer first and build your next week of meals around that. And then you want to look at what you still have in the pantry and base your sides for those meals with what you already have in the pantry, because that's going to cut down your cost of what you're shopping for each week. If you are just basing your meals on stuff that you feel like making, you're going to spend more money rather than, taking a look at what you already have and utilizing it in, a way that's still going to make you happy, because we love food. That is like my happy place. And so we don't skimp really on the food that we eat. I just make sure that we use our food properly and we're not going out and either overbuying because you don't have your pantry or fridge, organized properly to where you can see what you have. That's a huge issue. You're going to end up buying something that you already had, and then things are going to go to waste, or you're going to buy things that, you don't actually need for a meal and aren't going to get eaten, and they're going to go to waste. That's how you waste a lot of money. And for us, we can't really afford to buy more than what we need to, just based on space alone. So if I overbuy something that we already had, it's taking away room in the fridge or the freezer or the pantry for things that I need for the meals that are coming up. So it's really, really important to utilize what you have in your, fridge, freezer, and pantry and build your meals around that, rather than just deciding willy-nilly what, meals that you feel like having the next week, and then buying literally everything you need for that entire, 7 meals. That's insane, because it's unnecessary. When you chances are you have things in your freezer and pantry that you could use to go ahead and make a meal. The next thing that I do that cuts down on our budget for our grocery is I do not buy a lot of pre-made items or frozen foods or packaged snacks and things like that. A lot of people do, and we don't necessarily not buy them at all. It's just we limit the amount of it that we buy each month. So like the snack packs and fruit snacks and the packages of crackers and things like that aren't really necessary. We don't buy a lot of that. Instead, what we buy is like bread and peanut butter and lunch meats and hot dogs, fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's what my kids snack on. One, it's healthier than buying the prepackaged frozen things or prepackaged snacks, because there's a lot of preservatives in them, which is really bad for basically everybody, but especially bad for us adults that are getting older and maybe our metabolism isn't great. Preservatives can prevent you from losing weight. So if you're concerned about that, that's one of those things that you can cut out. And they're not budget friendly. They're extremely expensive, especially freezer foods and, like I said, the packaged snacks. Those are crazy expensive when you think about what you're spending on something that is like gone in a second. So that is something we tend to avoid when grocery shopping. Instead, the kids pick a fruit each week that they want to eat, and that's theirs. They usually get to choose the type of snack that they want, and we figure out, if they want to eat it, or they want like granola bars or whatnot, we'll get them the granola bars, and they all divide up their stuff and decide either I'm going to keep mine for myself and I'm not going to have anybody else's snacks, or we're going to divide all of our snacks up evenly so we all get a variety. Those are their choices, and they all have to make a decision unanimously together, or everybody's snack is their own and that's it. And we do this to prevent arguments and for the food disappearing too quickly, because they know that we're only going to go grocery shopping once that week. The only time that we go to the grocery store in the middle of that is for eggs and milk and bread, is just because those don't keep that long and we don't have a lot of room to store mass amounts of them. So as we run out of those things, usually those things we have to buy twice a week, but everything else is pretty much weekly. But yeah, making your own snacks at home is huge, and it also saves you a ton of money and is healthier for everybody than buying prepackaged things. The other thing that we do is, we make them bring their own snacks and drinks when we leave the house. So if you don't grab yours, that's on you. The younger two, I grab the babies. I remind Walker because he's young. But the other three, they know. You grab your water, you grab a snack. If you think you're going to get hungry while we're out, we're not going to stop at a gas station. We're not going to stop at fast food. We're not going to go out to eat. That way, they already know, and you don't have that inkling to stop and get them food and spend unnecessary money because your kids are hungry. What also, if we're not going to be out for a really long time, I'll just have them eat before we leave. So I tend to have us leave after lunch or after breakfast so that we are out and about in between meals or snacks. So that helps greatly too. And like I said, you make your own snacks so that you're not spending crazy amounts of money on, you're spending like $6-7 on a box of those like packaged snacks or chips, and they will literally eat all of those in like 2 days if we have them. So it's pointless. They'll just eat them to eat them instead of just grabbing an apple or a banana or some vegetables and dip, or my kids snack on hot dogs because they're weird. Ramen is another thing that we buy regularly. They love ramen. I grew up on it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, so I don't particularly eat ramen unless I make it as a meal. But they love it, so they'll eat that as a snack. Another thing to cut back on food is I tell my children that they can snack whenever they want. However, if I'm in the kitchen or it's within an hour of the food being done, they are no longer allowed to eat, because I'm not going to have them ruin their appetite and not eat my dinner. So that is also a really big standing point for me. I refuse to let them eat before dinner because they're going to eat what I made. I know a lot of families do not do that, especially with picky children. But I will say, I've been doing this basically since my kids were little. They get to choose their breakfast, they get to choose their lunch, they get to choose their snacks. So come dinner time, I choose the dinner. Usually they've had a say in what we're going to make for dinner anyways when we, before we go grocery shopping for the week. So nobody gets to say that they don't want to eat dinner and go eat something else. One, it's just not cost efficient, and two, I think it's unnecessary. They need to learn to eat what is made for them. So I don't allow for like second meals and things like that. They eat what we have on the table. If they're still hungry after dinner, they can get seconds. And if the seconds are gone, then yes, you can go eat a snack or whatever else, but you had to finish what was on your plate. So I do that a little bit differently than I think a lot of people do. I know some people that make, their kids and their husband's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I do not. I have other things that I choose to do with my time before dinner. So the baby, I do feed him, obviously. My husband usually helps with breakfast with the baby because he's still home before school. But I take care of his lunch and his snacks. But the older ones, they are all perfectly capable, to include the 6-year-old, of making their own breakfast and their own lunch. And if they do need assistance, then I help them. But they get to choose those. So come dinner, if they decide not to eat my meal, which is very rare because they've just been raised to eat everything, if they choose not to eat, I at least know that they've eaten probably, they have a breakfast first thing in the morning, then they have breakfast at school, then they have lunch at school. Sometimes they get a second lunch or take their own lunch to eat so that they can have 2 lunches. They usually have a snack on the bus or in the car on the way home. They get a snack when they get home. And then they usually have 2 to 3 helpings of dinner. And I've caught them eating, snacks before bed or even at like midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning. If my kids are hungry, I let them eat as long as they do so in the kitchen and they clean up their mess. So my kids literally just eat all day long. It's insane. But these are the things that I do to make it to where we can afford for them to eat as much as they do, and 2, just to make sure that we're not wasting food, because that is the easiest way to go crazy on your budget, is either being wasteful with your food because you're not making plans and not planning properly your food and utilizing what you already have in the house, but also you're choosing to get the easier things rather than just getting things that they can easily make themselves. Like they eat peanut butter tacos, which is just a piece of bread with peanut butter in it, and they fold it in half, or sometimes they put a banana in the center of it. But that's their snack, and it's way cheaper than them going and eating like 2 bags of chips and some fruit snacks and granola bars and all the other prepackaged things, or corn dogs or pizza rolls out of the freezer. Those are rare things for us to get for them, just because they eat it so quickly. It's not good for them, and it's really, really unnecessarily expensive when there's other options that, like I said, are healthier and more cost efficient. But yeah, so that's basically what I do to try to minimize our budget. And like I said, with a family of 7 and how much my kids eat, we still spend more than our mortgage in food every single month. But it would be so much more if we didn't plan things properly, if I didn't use the things that we already have in the fridge, in the freezer, in the pantry, if I didn't plan appropriately around our schedules and avoid, the prepackaged preserved foods that tend to be, 2 to 3 times the cost of a normal meal. One of the other things that I will say lastly that tends to save money and keeps down that waste factor, that is usually why you're spending more than you need to in food, is that if I go to open my fridge and I see more than like 2 or 3 food containers from leftovers, which does happen occasionally because I make meals to feed an army, and sometimes my kids won't eat seconds and thirds or fourths, so I'll end up with extra food. Like today, we have a good deal of leftovers in our fridge. I think there's like 6 or 7 containers of food in there. So today, instead of making the meal that I was going to make, I'm going to save that for the next day and shift all of my meals over. And today will be leftover night. So I do this for multiple reasons. One, I don't want to waste our food. And if there is, more than 2 or 3 containers in there, there's enough for the entire family to eat leftovers for dinner. So I'm cutting down the waste by them eating the leftovers before they either go bad or they've just been sitting there for a while, and we end up giving them to the pig. So I never actually waste food, because all of the food ends up going to the pig before it could ever go bad anyways. But we tend to not throw out a lot of food, and the only time food ends up with the pig anyways is on Saturday, when we go and clean out the fridge so that we can go grocery shopping the next day and have room. Any food that's in the fridge that is not that's leftovers or whatever, they end up going to the pig, and then we have, a clean fridge to go ahead and stock with more groceries for the next weeks of meals. But once or twice a week, we'll end up having enough. Usually only once a week, but occasionally twice a week if I really overmake the amount of food that we needed. The kids will go ahead and eat leftovers along with us for dinner. We just put them all on the table, and everybody makes their own plate of leftovers and heats it up in the microwave, and that's what we eat. And when you consider, the fact that I'm taking an entire meal's worth of food out of our budget once a week, that tends to add up too, because any meal can average between, for a family of 7, we usually spend between $10 to $15 to $30 on a meal each day, because like I said, we tend to eat well. So when it comes to saving, once a week, even $20 a week on food, that's, $80 a month that we're saving just in making sure that we use all our leftovers. Another thing that you can do is take your leftovers and combine them into a new meal, or make a new meal with them, utilizing what you already have in your pantry. And then lastly, when it comes to shopping, I am a little bit picky on certain brands of things. So certain things I refuse to buy off-brand. Peanut butter is one of them that we're really particular on. Butter is another. Our rolls, and I'm trying to think, there's our tortillas. We're really picky about certain things. But a lot of the other things, we buy the store brand. It tastes just the same as the name brand items for the most part. I mean, there's a few things that we don't waive on, that we're really particular about and buy the name brand item, but a lot of it you can buy, your H-E-B or Walmart brand of items, and they taste just as good and are far more expensive. So when we're shopping, I always check, the price per ounce or item or number of things that you're getting, because just because something's cheaper, by the price tag, doesn't always mean that it's a better value. So sometimes something that is 30 cents more has more in it, so it's worth it to go and get the 30-cent more one, because it has double the amount, or 2 or 3 more than the other one. So by item, it ends up being cheaper. Some of the other things that helps us save is just buying in bulk where it won't go bad, and usually the bigger amounts of things that you buy, it ends up being cheaper. I do not do coupons usually, but I do shop sales, and our HEB does do their coupons, and I use theirs. But I just don't have the time or energy or the memory to remember to use coupons. If I did, when I did, sometimes if it was something I was already going to purchase, it was worth it to use the extra coupon. However, you have to be careful when couponing, because if you don't do it properly and you are just buying something because of the fact that you have a coupon for it, rather than it was something you were already going to purchase, you're going to spend more money rather than sticking with your budget that you should have been sticking with in the first place. So coupons can actually be kind of dangerous if you're not paying attention and you're just buying something because you get it for less, rather than only using the coupons for items that you were already going to use on a regular basis anyways. So that's really important. And then I'm trying to think, there was one more thing. But yeah, oh yeah, Alice just made a good comment. A lot of the places have the price per ounce or item, etc., on the price tag on the shelf. So if you look at the price tag, usually in like the bottom left corner or right corner or whatever, it will tell you, it will have the breakdown cost of what it is per, like, say you're looking at diapers, it'll tell you, okay, so there's 28 diapers in this package. This is the cost per diaper for each of these items, so that you can really, they make it really easy for you if you don't want to do the math. But that's really helpful too. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I didn't even think to mention that's usually right there in front of you. You don't have to do any math to be able to do that. But yeah, so that is kind of my breakdown of, how we go about budgeting properly and avoiding, overspending on things, but also just being smart with how you plan things out. Planning is one of the easiest ways to make sure you stay within budget, is to plan around your schedule and what's in your pantry. If you do those two things alone, you're going to cut down the cost of your foods. And then utilizing your leftovers as a meal or as lunches, if you pack lunches or whatnot, using those as those things and replace, instead of making new things, can replace a full meal and save you even more. Oh, and then that was the last one. So we like to eat well, and we like to eat healthy, but we also make a lot of really awesome meals that cost very little. And you can add simple things to your meals that ends up making it a lot cheaper without, giving up on the taste or enjoying your food. So one of the things that I do not skimp on is seasonings. I love, having a variety of seasonings, because you can make the same exact thing and season it differently, and it gives you a completely different meal. So that is, one of the things that you can do if you want variety, but still don't want to spend an arm and a leg to completely change up your menu. Sorry, I'm like super thirsty today. And then, so when I cook for 7 people, it usually is anywhere between 1 and 2 pounds of meat at a minimum. And I can get away with 1 pound of meat if I make beans with it, because that is also protein. So if I want to go a little bit on the cheap side, I can use, 1 pound of ground beef, and we go with the lean. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's better for us. So if we don't have any ground deer in the freezer, we buy ground beef, and we just buy the really lean stuff. But we just got a deer put in our freezer, so we will be eating well, and it's going to cost us nothing for the meat. So that's awesome. But I can put, say, a pound of ground beef with 1 to 2 cans of beans, along with, some peas and carrots and Mexican rice, and heat up some tortillas. And that is a full meal that will feed 7 with seconds and sometimes leftovers. And it costs like maybe $10. It is super, super cheap. And the kids absolutely love it. A lot of our pastas, other than rice, are actually veggie pasta. It is a little bit more expensive than our regular pasta, but it's better for us, and the kids actually like it better. They prefer the veggie pasta over the regular pasta. And I don't have to cook a vegetable if I don't feel like it, so I can make like baked chicken with veggie noodles that I season and use olive oil to, flavor it, and some beans or a potato. And there's our meal, and it's filling, it's good for them, and it costs less. So there's a lot of different things that I do that just I put meals together that are fairly inexpensive that everybody really enjoys, and a lot of it just comes down to seasoning it properly. If anybody would like some of my recipes, I can attempt to give them to you. I will say that I season by sight and taste. I do not measure when cooking. So that might be a little difficult for me to share with you, but a lot of people have different taste anyways, so I would just stick to, your sense of smell. I smell my seasonings before I put them in my food. And if it's very strong seasoning, you just tend to use less of it, is kind of, how I gauge it. But I can give you the basics of what I do and how I do to make very inexpensive meals. I can give you some recipes if you guys would like. And if you guys have any more questions about, how I budget grocery-wise for our family of 7, just comment in the comments and let me know so that I can go ahead and answer those afterwards. And if you want those recipes, let me know that too in the comments, and I will go ahead and try to write some up for you guys. I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope I answered some questions and helped y'all out. You have a good day.